The Boston Celtics are going back to Boston, and still they're in a world of trouble because it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to get beat up. Milwaukee lost game 1. The Celtics got beat up in game 2. That's the difference.
Anytime you get a split on the road against the number 1 seed that's playing defense like that with the Greek freak and guys, that hot from the outside, you can get a split on the road. One team had the eye of the tiger, the other didn't, because the Bucks knew if they go down 0-2 to the Celtics, that's it. But if they win that game and Brogdon comes back and is integrated into the team like he comes back as mostly Malcolm Brogdon, they could win this whole thing this year. And yes, that includes against the Warriors. Underdogs against the Warriors. But they could beat the Warriors. They could beat the Rockets. They could beat anybody when fully healthy. They're not quite as deep as the Raptors or the Celtics. But boy, when they get Brogdon back, that's going to be a problem. Don't forget, Mirotic didn't really have a chance to play because it was a deadline deal. Then he got hurt, and then Brogdon got hurt. We really haven't seen their version of the death lineup, which I believe is actually Bledsoe off the bench. Brogdon, Middleton, Freak.
I agree with that, Max.
Mirotic,
I agree with
Lopez.
that about Bledsoe. I agree with that.
I like Bledsoe, but I'll say this. The Celtics got a split on the road. It's one game, Stephen A. It does not mean, they're doomed now because they got a split. They have to feel good about getting a split on the road. We've seen series in recent years involving the Spurs and other teams where through 2 games, it's like, oh, my God, this team's a machine. Then they lose the next 4. It's just one game. They got a split on the road. Celtics got to feel good.
I agree with you, Max, though, because if you think about the Celtics where they were 2 months ago, Stephen A., let's talk about it. They were sliding down the Eastern Conference standings. And if you told them then 2 months ago that now they, in the first round, would sweep in the playoffs, they're going up in the second round against the Milwaukee Bucks, the team with the best regular season record in the NBA. And guess what? You're going home game 3 with a split. I'm pretty sure they'd be like, bet, I'm cool. I like it. I'm happy. And more importantly, this team was able to get a win, steal a road win, when the Bucks have 2 of the best advantages in basketball right now. One being Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is actually not playing his best basketball per se. That deceptive help has really helped, ignite the Celtics' confidence, especially game 1. Because in the regular season, Giannis, he shot the ball 58% from the field. Against the Celtics this season, in this series, this postseason series, he's shooting only 38%. They're doing a great job on Giannis. And again, they have another great advantage, the Bucks, in that they could have home court advantage over the entirety of the NBA playoffs. So if you're the Celtics, you have to feel pretty good about how you're defending Giannis. The only question mark here is how are you going to guard the perimeter after you use that deceptive help? You cannot let Chris Middleton, who finally is starting to look like the all-star that he was for the first time this year, go off for 7 threes. You have to have that deceptive help and go and make sure you control the shooters on the perimeter. Because in game 1, the Bucks only made 13 threes. The X factor is that they made 20 and they were getting open looks. And now, Stephen A., you were also talking about, hey, they got blown out. But let's dive into why they got blown out. In the third quarter, about 7 minutes left, there was a 24-2 run that the Bucks had. But in that run, the Celtics, they shot 12 shots, and they missed 11. They were 1 for 11. You can't shoot like that, but that's on them. They also had 6 turnovers. So if you look at the Celtics, the big picture here is that, guess what? You stole 1 win on the road. You're heading home to Boston. You're feeling good about how you're defending Giannis Antetokounmpo. We just got a key on Chris Middleton, who knocked down 7 threes, and if we do that, I like our odds.
Going to do when Brogdon comes back.
Hold on, Max, because she addressed me, and I'd love to retort to what she had to say. Beautiful basketball analysis, but I must ask you a question, albeit somewhat rhetorically. Is Jason Tatum important to this series? Jason Tatum is averaging 4.5 points on 24% shooting in the first 2 games. He's been non-existent. You can't have that. Gordon Hayward scored 5 points last night. I think it was 3 or 5 points. You can't have that. When you go into this series, you know that Milwaukee, not only an elite defensive team, but a team that launched the second most threes in the NBA throughout the season. They've depended on their perimeter shot. It's not just about Middleton. It's Middleton, it's Mirotic, it's Brook Lopez. If Brogdon comes back, it'll be him. To a lesser degree, it's Bledsoe. Even Antetokounmpo's been hitting threes. And so when you look at it from that perspective and you take into account the size, the girth, the mass that they have, I'm not saying this series is over. Of course, it's a beautiful thing that Boston got 1 of the 2. I'm simply pointing out something Shanae. When you lose a game, the fashion in which you lose it. sometimes can affect you psychologically. The Boston Celtics know they got to hit perimeter shots because you don't really have an interior game against Milwaukee. You got to hit perimeter shots. They won game one because Al Horford was able to step away from the basket, hit those perimeter shots, and be effective against them. Plus, he was doing so defensively. If you got trees up in there and you have no interior game and everything is predicated on perimeter shooting and you're not getting that level of production, and the one dude who can be that X factor is Jason Tatum, and he's non-existent, we've got ourselves a problem. And that's all I'm saying. We have Boston. We have ourselves a problem. You can fix it, but you got a problem.
But see, it's not a huge problem to me because it's not often that you have Jason Tatum and Gordon Hayward and, of course, Kyrie Irving with 9 points, 4 for 18 from the field. That's an anomaly that all three of them perform that way. In my opinion, the Celtics, if you think about this team, they play better when their backs are up against the wall. They won game one. That was a huge convincing win. It gave them confidence. And, of course, we knew that Coach Bud was going to have a switching defense and come back, and especially Giannis Antetokounmpo was going to play more aggressive. And, of course, the Bucks were going to knock down more shots. But they're feeling good about themselves because game one they got. Now they're heading back home. And I've known Kyrie Irving for a pretty long time. I was a McDonald's All-American the same time. We're in the same class of 2010. And this is a guy that performs best when his back is up against the wall. Going into game one.
I'm not worried about Kyrie now. I'm not worried about Kyrie. Not at all.
But are you worried about Al Horford? He's also playing his best basketball right now. And when he's performing, and Kyrie is going to do better, especially playing at home, when you have all the energy of the Garden, I'm not thinking that Jason Tatum and also Gordon Hayward and Kyrie are going to perform like they did game two. I think that they're going to feed off the energy and the confidence that they got from game one.
Shanae,
well, I'll give you this, Shanae. At least you ain't Paul Pierce. Talk about the series was over after game one. At least you didn't go that far.
No, sir.